Hi.
Hey.
Y'all, I'm so pumped that Shani Hadjian is here with us today. Hello.
Hey. I'm
Um,
excited to be here.
I cannot wait. For anybody who's listening, who are you today?
Today I'm sweaty
Mm-hmm.
and I am Shani. My pronouns are she, they, and I am a actor, photographer, and filmmaker living in Brooklyn. And I specialize in actor headshots.
Yes, you do. And I mean, that's really the majority of why you're here, though I'm sure that this conversation will unpack a lot more. Um, what's filling your heart right now? Like, what's making you happy? What's filling you with joy? I'm just curious, selfishly.
I mean, I will say the amount of clients that have come to me after this 2-year time period that have said, I have found myself, that's what's fueling me. It's really cool to see some, I'm going to say some joy, some good that has come out of this time in terms of self-awareness and also just ownership of self, which is cool because we are seeing it in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's because actors are stepping into themselves strongly.
Yes.
And that's fueling me.
Yeah. Ugh, I love that. I cannot wait to get into this conversation. But I also just want to remind you, myself, do you remember where we first met?
I believe it was auditions for Spamalot.
Yeah. That was so long ago. Oh my God, for Lady of the Lake, which Shani booked, y'all. But I just remember that audition so well, oddly, and like most auditions don't stick. And maybe because it was literally at my alma mater, and I was like, "Oh, this is why am I here?" But I feel like I haven't seen you much since then. So I mean,
No.
for the ether webs, really.
Correct. I feel like we saw each other then at a random audition once, and I think Sarah Primer then was like, "Hey, you guys know each other."
Yeah.
And we were like, "Yes, we met at this audition." Yeah. I think that was the one time since that Spamalot audition that we saw each other in person.
Yeah. Wow, I haven't heard of Sarah Primer in years. Hello, Sarah, if you listen. Wild. I hope you're doing well. The world is insane. Well, I want to, just before we even get into the full weeds of headshot land, how did this particular part of your creative hat begin? Like, how did you begin your photography journey?
Totally. So I went to college for music theater, but before then so I grew up with artists as parents, and I always had a camera. I loved photos. And I took photography classes growing up. And then in college, I always tell this anecdote because it's funny to me. I did not drink, and there was some pressure to drink. Mm-hmm. But if I had a camera, that was my excuse.
Yes.
So I became the unofficial historian, where I would just be like, "Oh, no, I'm good," holding up my camera, "Let me take a photo." And then that would distract people.
Okay.
And then because of that, always having a camera, people would be like, "Hey, could you take my headshots?" Mm-hmm. And honestly, I wish I could find them from 15 years ago because they're so bad. But that's where it kind of started. And then I moved to the city. And my first 2 years in the city, I barely auditioned because I was just trying to make ends meet. And I was serving tables and bartending. And then I was like, you know what? I want an artistic outlet. I need to do something. So in 2010, I started my business. And that first year, I just built my portfolio. And I mean, I found things, I think it was $75 for a photo shoot. Wow. And then built it. And then now here I am 12 years later, where it is, I joke, I think I'm kind of a photographer that dabbles in acting nowadays, which I love. I don't mind it at all, because I focus on actor headshots. And so I get to be around all the people that I have loved my whole life. As well as occasionally acting.
Amazing. So A side note I feel like I'm feeling very parallel to you. I was also that girl who took photos, and then pre-grad school for me, this was my side hustle. I was a
Oh my
headshot
God.
photographer. I know.
Heck
I know.
yes.
I still have the domain, like Jennifer Apple Photography, and like stuff from back then is there. And I look at it and I'm like, is this good? Was this good? And the thing that was like my derailing is the editing process. I hate it. To this day, I despise editing, but I'm always that girl with photos and taking pictures, and I have all my iterations of cameras and yada, yada, yada. But I'm in some ways I'm envious of people like yourself who are like, I continued to love it and I continued to do it because it really did, in some ways like a voyeuristic visual into people's psyche and their hearts and their souls. And you really just see people in a very intimate way, and it's meeting people at their core of who they are. And there was something so magical about that. So in some ways I'm going to live vicariously through you and what you are doing now again, because this was a different chapter season of my own life.
I love that.
I know.
I
But
love it.
the industry certainly changed since like the outdoor headshots, like by like a brick wall. Now it's like, where's your color? What are you doing?
Yeah.
So let's get into it. If I were to find a headshot photographer and I was Googling in the world, what about you would I want to shoot with? Or why would I choose you? What about you makes you who you are as a photographer?
Great question. So I came up with this phrase a couple of years ago because I was in like a leadership workshop, and I created this phrase that says, I create spaces where everyone is seen and heard, building connection and acknowledging worth by lifting my voice so others feel free to lift theirs.
Yes.
Took me a long time. And I stand by that. I think that I have worked very hard to shape the reputation of a space for all that will capture your authentic self, without you even knowing, because I think that can be scary. Like, a lot of clients will be like, I don't know what my authentic self is yet. But I do. Like I will get there. And so I think that I should change my wording on that if I'm thinking of my like therapist. I know I do create that space. I also am adamant about walking the walk, not just talking the talk. So 10% of my profit goes to a charity of my choice, essentially, every month. And this year it has been, the first couple of months were Equality Texas, to help our trans siblings out there. And then the past couple of months have been like abortion foundations.
Amazing.
To aid in that. And so that is really, really cool to me, because like clients are not only supporting me, but they are supporting others as well.
Yeah.
And then also I am actively auditioning. I'm actively booking work in commercial theater and TV film. And so it kind of gives me that view on what's happening. I understand what it's like to get headshots taken. I understand what casting and agents and everybody is looking for on the other end. And I can kind of put those two centers of knowledge together to help create the best outcome, I'll say. Not even experience, because that has nothing to do with the other end of the table. So that you can really see something come from your headshot session. Yeah. My favorite thing is when clients reach out, or sometimes agents reach out, and they're just like, oh, this person was having a really hard time getting in the room, and now we've got them in the room, for 4. Sometimes it's recurring, like right out of the bat, like recurring roles. And I'm like, that's incredible. I had somebody that just said that they got their first Broadway audition after our headshot session. It's things like that. Like, I want tangible evidence. And so I get really specific. And I think you can see that in my photos.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I've decided to work with you. And
I would love that.
Great. So leading up to this process, I'm going to make myself let's say I've never taken headshots, right? So I'm just going to pretend that I was literally never a photographer and I didn't know any of these things. So What do I need to know about myself going into a shoot? Is it my energy? Is it my aesthetic? Is it types and roles? Is it, I hate this word so much, type, but also brand. I also hate that. Like, what do I need to know about myself before I even deal with the space and what I'm wearing and all that jazz?
Okay, so I too don't love what has historically been referred to as type.
Yeah.
But when I talk about it, I literally want to think of, it's like the commonalities of the types of roles you want, not necessarily what your type is that we've heard in the industry. But let's say you make a list. I always suggest making a list of dream roles or TV shows that you've seen that you're like, I want to be on that. And it's that thing where you can find common roles. So let's say within that list, you have Mimi in Rent. Now I'm going to blank on all names and everything. Clark from the 100. Don't know if you watched that. What's her face in Next to Normal? That sings Superboy and the Invisible Girl. Whatever. Yep. Those are all, you can see, those are all contemporary and like a little, we'll call them edgy.
Yeah.
And that will inform you of that type. Like that's your like badass, edgy, you're gonna be strong, powerful, connected in that way. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I kind of talk about, like, if I refer to type, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying like, oh, looking at you, Jennifer, you are this type. No. Yeah. Because you are more than that. You can do whatever you want. So I always suggest kind of at least knowing the types of roles that you want to play. Mm-hmm. And some people have a really hard time with that. And then it's like, well, we can go even simpler. So it's like, do you like comedy? Is it Shakespeare and classics? Is it big, broad musicals? Those are all going to inform your photographer about what you do. Hopefully the photographer has that in mind to help. So that is one thing to know about yourself. The rest, in terms of like, some people come in and they're like, I don't know what to do with my body. Mm-hmm. That's okay. Like, you as an actor are trained in connection, and that's really all we want. And hopefully your photographer will be there to give you direction. There are a couple tips that I always give. I like the client to lean forward a little bit. It gives it a little bit of that activeness because it's a two-dimensional stagnant photo. Mm-hmm. But if we can bring some activeness to it, then great. But like, those aren't things I think the client should worry about.
Okay.
So really, to me, you just need to know the roles that you want to play. And then from there, that's where your homework comes in to get your outfits going. So the days of wearing jewel tones are over.
Praise be.
And it is all about specificity. The casting directors are looking at, I saw that you had Erica Hart on. Mm-hmm. And I remember she posted something about like within 3 hours, she had like 1,800 submissions.
Yes.
So it's things like they're looking at thumbnails for thousands of them. So as soon as they look at it, we want them to feel something. So that's where your clothing choice can be really powerful. So that's the other thing that you can know before you even book is your clothes. But honestly, that can also come after you book because you can talk to the photographer a little bit. But I can go into that now if you want.
Yeah. So let's jump to clothing because, there's but I shouldn't wear something distracting. Or I don't want to, dress like I'm a thing that isn't me, but also my favorite shirt isn't necessarily flattering because it hangs off of, like, what does one do when one is either I don't care about my clothing or one cares too much about the clothing and all the things in between?
Okay, so, all right, there were so many things you just said I want to comment on.
We have time.
Let me think. Okay, well, first of all, if you don't think it's you, don't really wear it.
Great.
You know, like I am a queer person, and when my manager wanted me to get headshots that was like first date. And I was like, what do you mean by that? She was like, just something really like pretty that you would wear on a first date. And in my mind, I was like, I would wear a leather jacket, and like, that's not what you want. So then I, talked to her. I was like, do you mean something like soft, and romantic? She was like, yeah. And honestly, the only thing I have this soft, purple sweater. And I ended up wearing that, and I chose like a lighter background and then a softer expression, like a soft smile. Mm-hmm. Because like, I'm not going to wear like frills. I'm not going to wear a spaghetti strap. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm not going to wear what I think like a romantic lead would wear. But I can wear something that will soften me a little bit. So it's things like that to think about. How would you present? How would you like to be dressed if you walked in and the wardrobe was like, all right, you have your choice of this or this? It's kind of the like two ends of the spectrum. Which one would you be? I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but it's that like you can decide which end of the spectrum you are if you don't fit the other end.
Well, what if it's that you genuinely don't care? I know, like, I think that's part of maybe I'm projecting on, I'm owning this space here that like, I wouldn't call myself a fashionista in any way of any term. And it's like, for me, I think similarly to you, like on a date, like I'm just wearing whatever I'm comfortable with. And like, then I get to show up. And that's the whole point of why I'm on a date with you anyways. Like, hopefully you get to meet me, right? Or like a first impression of any capacity. So it's like, if I'm going to wear what I'm going to wear, it's probably going to be something chill and cool, or breathable and comfortable. But that isn't necessarily, I don't necessarily have like the whole plethora of options in my closet. Do I need to go out and then find, say, soft? Do I need to find, say, hard? Or is it like just wherever your dial is, just own the fact that this is your dial and we will make it work when you all get there?
That's how I feel about it. Yeah. I definitely feel like we'll make it work, especially with colored backgrounds being a popular thing these days. It's like you can bring in a white shirt and a black shirt and we'll make it work.
Yeah.
To give the connotation of anything.
Yeah.
It can get more specific. But then we get into the thing of like, we can get more specific with hair and makeup and jewelry and accessories as well. So there are ways that you can help with that. But yeah, I always say if you want to go shopping, just keep the tags on and then return it.
We live.
Totally acceptable. I don't like people to overthink, but it is, try to allow yourself to maybe have fun with the fact that you could buy something and then return it.
No stores are listening. This is not sponsored by anything. Please, we didn't say it, but we might have said it. So just, we didn't tell you. You can go shopping and keep tags. And you did not hear it here first.
It's basically like you're just trying it on in the dressing room.
Yeah. And then when somebody's like, this is an amazing outfit, you're like, yeah, you can go to that store and still try it on. I returned it last week. Yeah, it's still there. And then what about things that for people who, maybe aren't as comfortable in their bodies or are going through some sort of, body transformation and they still need to get headshots? How do you talk to, communicate with people about owning their bodies as beautiful where they are, about clothing that fits them for who they are, embracing all of that, the body dynamic, which I know is a big overwhelming. I want to like flag here that this is like potentially triggering and content warning. I don't know, but also I can imagine it can be really sensitive. So I just want to tag that.
Yeah. And I'm going to say that doesn't always happen in terms of talking about clothing. To me, that is I open up with my clients about my struggles. We will talk about this, and it's pretty amazing to see the atmosphere and the energy in the room shift just because we are being honest and vulnerable. And also with that, sentiment. You don't need to look at your headshot after it's taken. The point of a headshot is literally, it's a tool, and it just needs to look like you.
Yeah.
And I always say it's that thing where it's like, I don't like the way I look, but that's what I look like. I can see a photo and be like, yeah, that is what I look like. And it is a skill that comes with practice of being able to disconnect from the emotional aspect of what you look like. Yeah. To be able to look at yourself and be like, yeah, I mean, I see 1,000 things wrong with my face, but that's my face. Right. And that is a good, objectively good photo of me connecting with the eyes, telling the story I wanted to tell. So as with clothing, don't wear something that you don't feel comfortable in. If it is too tight and you feel uncomfortable in it, don't wear it. If it is loose and you feel uncomfortable in it, don't wear it. Or I have clips here, we can clip it. But usually you don't feel comfortable even with clips. Also, like, they are digital. We will take so many photos. You only need a few. Yeah. It's that thing where, and then don't ever look at it. I never look at my headshot. I mean, the only time I see it is if I'm going to self-submit on Actors Access, and literally it's 2 seconds. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to use that one. And then I'm done. I do not have to spend time on it. And I think that is perfectly acceptable. Yeah. It's just like, don't spend time in front of the mirror. That's my therapist is like, don't mirror check. Don't do that.
Also, isn't it weird? I mean, this is a total tangent, but isn't it strange that you will never actually know what you look like? Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think there's something really beautiful in that, where even in a mirror, it's a reflection. When you look in a camera, it's a captured moment. When somebody sees you through their eyes and they tell you what, it's always actually mirrored, and also not what you are never, ever, ever in your entire existence of living on this planet ever able to see yourself. And for me, that's actually quite freeing, because it's also the idea that we sound like something because of the echo in our own heads of how our voices sound and the timbre of our voice and our sound. And then you listen to your recording, you're like, oh, who's that? Which happened to me in this podcast. I was like, who is my voice? And then it was like, just your voice. Like, no, you just cannot. It is what it is. But you'll never, ever actually know. And there's something really freeing about that, I think, or at least that whether it's disassociation or whether it's disconnecting from it, it's just like, no matter how you view yourself and whatever means you view yourself, it will never actually be what another person is receiving. So it's just energy wasted.
Correct. But if you sat in on my therapy sessions, it would definitely be me being like, no, I know this is what I look.
I agree. This is coming from maybe a place of deflection from my own therapy that I also am doing, of like, no, it's totally fine. You are who you are, and that is what it is. And you just need to own that. And it's like, is it okay? Yeah. It's not okay. It's not okay. Yeah, absolutely owning the fact that this isn't just a solved thing. I'm not here being like, friends, I have this figured out. I don't.
Yes. The rational versus the emotional brain.
Completely.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard. Getting headshots taken is hard. So I try to explain to take the pressure off. As a headshot photographer who makes my living doing this, I'm like, it's not a big deal. But really, what it comes down to is it needs to look like you. It needs to be well lit. It needs to give them an instant idea of who you are and what you're capable of doing. And it needs to be somewhat connected in the eyes, because otherwise they might not feel an emotional pull to it.
We'll talk about the emotional stuff in like a second. I just want to get all the aesthetic-y stuff out of the way, because this is where people tend to go. And it's like, is this what this is about? Makeup, hair, facial hair, jewelry, that stuff. What?
Yeah. I always say, if you just be honest with yourself, if you are a person that wears makeup and you do not think that you do a good job, hire a makeup artist. Book a package that has a makeup artist.
And do you have some that you always use? You have your people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I work with 4 or 5 on rotation, all within the industry as either actors themselves, or they went to school for acting, or they're working on Broadway as makeup artists, just because then everybody, we can talk about the same world. Yeah. It's not people coming from the editorial world or the corporate world. It's people in it. And yeah, so it's that honest approach. It's if you don't normally wear makeup and you look at yourself objectively in the mirror and you say, I have redness in my skin, I have acne prone skin, I'm very shiny and need somebody to, help me out with that. Yeah, book a makeup artist. There are different packages. I do not gender my packages, so I have a grooming package and a full makeup package, which grooming is just the skin stuff, redness reduction, shine reduction, under eye coverage. Whereas the full makeup will be all of that plus eye makeup, blush, lips. So you can be wearing makeup without looking like you're wearing makeup. And I always suggest that because also I don't know if photographers don't do this anymore, but there used to be a time where they would not give you the high resolution images. You should be getting the high resolution images. I just don't think that there's any reason why you shouldn't. But so with me, you get all the high resolution images. I want them to look as good as possible so you can use them unretouched if you want. And that's what I always, if you get a makeup artist, like chances are you will look even more retouched without being retouched. So you can use more photos without paying more. But then there are people that you can look at them, they look at themselves and they say, no, my skin looks pretty darn good. Then don't use makeup artists. Or I'm very good at makeup.
Yeah.
Great. So it's that kind of honesty with self about makeup. Hair, it's the same thing. If you have no idea what you're doing, I suggest getting somebody. And I will speak for my artists. We will not put our ideas of what we think your hair or makeup should look like on you. So I always say, like, my clients are the executive producer. You have final say. You like, we are a client-based service. You are paying for us. We will give you our professional assistance. If you do not know what to do, we will say, oh, this is probably what we would do if we had the choice. But ultimately, like, you are in charge. So I'm not going to change your curl pattern. I'm going to take the straighter sections and curl it to match the curlier sections.
Right.
Because that happens with curly hair. If I always suggest if you can change up your hair throughout. And that could literally just be pulling it half back, pulling it into a ponytail. A lot of people will come in and say they just want their hair down. And I understand that. I think it also comes from that idea that we need to look, I'm going to quote unquote, say pretty.
Right.
And then if we unpack that, it is this idea of wearing hair down if you have long hair. Yeah. Which is not correct on lots of levels. It is just that thing of, if you are going in for an athlete, if you are going in for a young mom, if there are certain roles that would not wear their hair down.
Yeah. Because
it would just not be plausible. Like, you would not be a cheerleader with your hair down. So, I mean, if you're going out for Glee in 2000, when was that? I don't even know. 5?
10? I don't know. Whoa.
Sure. I don't know. Long time ago.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going out for a cheerleader on there, like, they wear their hair in ponytails, wear your hair in a ponytail. So it is that kind of, like, it can change the face. If you have facial hair, if you are not opposed to shaving it, do it.
Mm-hmm.
It completely changes your look.
Yeah.
If you have, I worked with this one client with short curly hair, and throughout she came with it curly, and then we ended up straightening it at the end, and it just completely different.
Yeah.
And that's what she would do for those certain auditions. It's that knowing, and then we'll tie it back to what we talked about at the beginning of knowing self, of this idea that if you are prime time, if you are going in for prime time shows, chances are you're going to be hair straightened.
Mm-hmm.
It's little things like that, like knowing. But then if you also want to go for streaming, or you want to show your curl pattern, wear it curly. Yeah. there's little things that can make it super specific. Are you going for Upper East Side, like money? You might get a blowout every day. Like this character might get a blowout every day. It's just things like that to think about. Also, there's no right or wrong in any of this. Like, if you think, no, if I was a rich bitch on the Upper East Side, like I would wear my curl pat, I would wear my hair natural. Great. Awesome. Then let's do that. Yeah. It's just things to think about and you can play with it. So that's kind of where I am with hair and makeup.
Cool. What about jewelry?
It's a tool. Jewelry, yes, go for it. Great. I love my clients that come in. They're like, I'm an earring person, and I brought these dinosaur earrings. And I'm like, amazing. Where did you get them? I want to buy them.
Obsessed. Yeah.
My most liked photo of 2021 was Gwen with a pink fuzzy jacket, a pink background, and like pink lollipop earrings.
Amazing.
And Gwen is now, was on the Oklahoma tour and then was at Williams Theater Festival, like booking like crazy because she had a knowledge of self and really demonstrated it in the photos.
Amazing.
And they're also just an amazing human. But so yeah, accessories, sure. Beanie, go for it. I mean, like pearls.
Yeah.
I had a client that lives on the Upper East Side and she was like, this is my Upper East Side look. And she brought a turtleneck, a puff jacket, and pearls.
Yes.
It was so good. It was so good.
Yeah.
Like just the pearls made it like in a puff jacket, like she's going for a workout. It's that thing where it's like, that is so specific.
Yeah.
And we instantly know, oh yeah, we know who this is.
Well, what I'm hearing from you is, I think there's the fine line of when something feels quote unquote costumey versus when something is authentically your interpretation of the things that you can do. Right. Yes. And therefore it becomes more fun when it's like, this is the playground. I love playing all these things. And with all these things in this playground, this is my time in these couple of hours with you to just literally play with all of these things that I personally love, whether it's the outfit, the hair, the costume, not costume, the wardrobe, the jewelry, whatnot. It's your space to play with the people and the types and the things that speak to your heart.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't say wear a cheerleading outfit, but I'd say maybe a tank top, like a racerback tank top that's going to be kind of cut like one. You know what? It's that thing where you can allude to, and then it also makes it more versatile than the costume.
Right.
Because then that could be gymnast, that could be track star, that could be just somebody showing off that they have great deltoids. Like I don't know.
Listen, these breakdowns these days, you never know. This character must have great deltoids, and if they don't, please do not submit.
I mean,
listen, truly. Let's talk now about the emotional component, or when you are in front of the camera, and all of a sudden now there's lights, and now there's a camera, and now there's like, it's you. Yeah. How do you hold a hand? How do you encourage, and or how do I, if I were standing in that spot, bring of myself in this situation to really show up through my eyes, through my face, in the most natural way that is of me?
I always say it's easier for actors to be other people than themselves in front of the camera. So sometimes I will suggest this idea that you are Jennifer in this world who doesn't mind getting their photo taken, actually might kind of like it. Yeah. It's like you can, I don't know. I always suggest that, try to put that in there, fake it till you make it kind of thing, because it really does work. I also have a worksheet that I offer to all my clients that is more character-based, which I think helps people get out of their head, because that is what we're trained to do. We're not trained to take a headshot. We're trained to be and to connect. Yeah. So within that worksheet, I have this section that is like phrases that this character would say. And that is helpful because then you're up there, you're doing, the young mom. And then you're just thinking like, oh, I'm so proud. Like, look at, that's my kid. They're sharing. Look, oh, you guys want some orange slices? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, you kind of put on, you become this like character of like, oh, I'm stepping into this, or like the badass, like, I don't know. I just lifted my eyebrows, just literally thinking of the line, like, what do you want?
Right.
You know, like, and we're not looking for specific expressions. I'm not like, just give me expressions. It is just like what's going on in your head. Some people don't work with the phrases, and then it's just thinking of a person, a scene partner. I am very active in my directing. And I've heard that other photographers are not. So then it is more on the client. But I will always try to give you what you are, the circumstance, and then also body direction in terms of relax your shoulders.
Yeah.
Chin up, chin down, like whatever I see. Because a lot of people will tense up their shoulders. You know, I will help with that. I don't think those should be in the actors' minds. So I guess I would recommend, it's like, one, have faith that you know how to connect. Think of the camera as your favorite scene partner. And just connect. Also, it's hard for me because I'm like, we're going to be having so much fun. Like, it's just going to happen. So like, it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't really actually like know how it happens, but it does. Trust me, it does.
Well, I think you're bringing up something really important too, right? Like the whole process for many people, like they love a headshot session because it's a time to just be and explore and have fun. Other people, you know, it's a process and they whatever, and some people it's just new. But I think what you are touching on is the fact that it is a relationship, you and the camera, and also more importantly, you and who you decide to shoot with, right? It is something that if you are not comfortable with the person who is using this vessel through which to capture you, then you are not going to show up as yourself. And if you have somebody that you've vetted and you've communicated with and you've taken time to discuss the things that are important to you or you're nervous about, I would imagine that therefore your session is infinitely more powerful just because you feel seen.
Yes. And with that, when you're looking for a headshot photographer, I mean, we're all good at stalking people. Like, you should definitely check out what they stand for also. These, like, please. But also, like, what do they post about? Do they post only, I don't know, only selfies? Like, I don't know. That to me tells me what that type of person is. Are they posting only dog photos? I'm just saying that would be my first choice. Like, no, no, but like do some, like you said, vetting about the person. Also, website professionalism, sure, but talk to if you know people that have worked with them, that is a great way to know about the experience. If you can. And then also, I always suggest, if you love a photographer's work, find, and you don't know anybody that has worked with them, find so let's say we're on Instagram and you're like, this portfolio is amazing. If they tag those actors, please click and see if you can see what those actors look like, not in a headshot. Because there are times where I'm like, man, this photographer is incredible. And then I click on the actor's profile and I'm like, this looks nothing like them.
Yeah.
So that is along with personality. And then that brings trust of knowing that it's going to look like you. And then also if you have known somebody that has worked with them, or you can get a sense of who they are. I mean, I've been trying to make those silly reels so that people understand that like, I'm kind of weird. Like,
but like in the best way.
Oh, weird is like my highest compliment.
Okay, great. Like, I'm like, is there an apology here? Because I don't like it.
Absolutely not. No,
Great.
I'm like proud.
Great. Good. Yes. Amen.
but that type of like, I'm trying to get my energy out there so people understand that like I'm not a stiff corporate human.
Yeah.
And I don't mean corporate in a negative connotation, but I just am not corporate.
Yeah. I know this is a sticky question, but I'd love to talk about price pointing things.
Yeah.
And help me navigate this with you and how you feel comfortable. But, you know, I feel like there is a very clear distinction of range with headshot photographers where there is the high end. And because that has that price tag associated with it, there's an assumption that this is what must be done. Or there's like the very, very low, and I don't mean that in like a negative connotation, but like a low end of price range. You're like, well, I guess they haven't had as much experience because they're offering it at this rate. And then there's what I would argue is like the middle range of things. But no matter what, you're shelling out money. So could we talk money for a moment?
Yes.
I guess that's my question.
Yeah. I mean, it is hard. I always say, if you love a photographer's work who is over $1,000 or close to it or whatever, yeah, if you can save up and work with them, great. I lots of clients. I feel like, who was it? It was somebody where they mentioned another photographer, and I was like, well, yeah, if you want to shell out this much money, I basically made a joke about me costing less.
Mm-hmm.
And this client said like, well, yeah, I noticed that as well, like in a way that it was like that was the deciding factor,
Right.
Which there's absolutely no shame in that. Mm-hmm. Like if you're like, I love this person's work, but I cannot afford that. Yeah. It's kind of that thing where it's like, if you have a list and you put it in order of who you would prefer to work with, and then you go through and you're like, I cannot afford the first and second person, and you're going to go with the third, go with the third. Like, right. If that's what you can afford, if you can save up for a couple months, if you really want to work with that first on your list, go for it. Mm-hmm. But I definitely agree that there is this idea that when they cost more, it's because they're the best. Right. And the best is so subjective. Like who knows? To one person, they could be. To somebody else, they might not be. Mm-hmm. But again, it's that who speaks to you. What do you like? Does it look like the client? And then also, I will say, like a lot of the time, the price point is higher because they have a studio space.
Right.
And I am sitting in my large living room right now with photography equipment behind me. As you can see, I shoot in my home. It's a large space. It's essentially the size of what I could probably get for $2,200 a month for a studio space, but I don't have that overhead, so I don't have to charge as much.
Right.
And I also, as an actor myself, I also understand what it is, and I try to keep my prices low. And my prices honestly went up for the first time in like 4 years this year, and I justified it because of inflation. Yeah. Otherwise, I like hate doing that, but inflation was out of control. So but yeah, so it's that so that has something to do with the price point. It's not necessarily always who has worked with the, best people or whatever. Sometimes it literally is just their overhead is higher, so they have to charge more. Yeah. So it really comes down to who resonates with you and what you're capable of spending.
Right. How often do you think somebody, I don't like the word, but should update their headshots? Is it just like if you change aesthetically or if you energetically feel different? Is it totally subjective? Is it objective?
Yes. So
great.
So I always say, if you are self-submitting and you keep noticing that like, oh man, I don't have a headshot for this role, this type of role, and I keep seeing this type of role, make note of that. Mm-hmm. or if your agents do the same, your agents, managers might say, you know, like, we could really use this. That might be time to update something. Yes, if you change your hair drastically, and I mean like drastically, and you're going to keep it that way, because like sometimes, I mean, when I'm growing out my hair now, but when I would have like fades, 2 months would pass and it looked pretty different, but like it's still short hair.
Yeah.
And I would cut it nicely if you know what I mean? Like they would cut it, or I would cut it before booking a job or something like that. And if you dye your hair and you know you're going to dye it back in 6 weeks, you don't need to. If you look at your headshots and you think that you're like, I don't even know this person anymore, because you have, become, more connected with a certain part of yourself, or you just feel like a different human, I also say that could be a time. Yeah. If somebody in a like pay to play or workshop or something says to you, like, you need a new headshot, this doesn't look like you, take a step back, understand that that's just feedback, and then you assess if you agree or disagree. Because if you disagree, don't spend your money.
Yeah.
Because there are people that come in and they're just like, this one person in this casting workshop said that I was wearing too much makeup. And I was like, okay. I don't know what that means.
Right.
Sometimes you do. Yeah. Sometimes you can say this person's wearing too much makeup, but also other times that is just something that they wanted to say, or it's not
helpful. Yeah.
Like, tell me exactly what you mean. Do I look older do I look older than I look in person because of the makeup? That is more helpful. Right. But sometimes people get caught up on one person's comment, because it's that thing where somebody's going to be like, I really like outdoor photos. Yeah. And you're going to be like, well, yeah, everyone else likes indoor right now. So, right. But again, it's being kind of self-aware and objective with yourself.
Yeah. So on day of or pre-day of, what would be said physical preparation?
Yeah. Let's start 2 weeks ahead.
Great.
Okay. If you need a haircut, get a haircut. If you have short hair, or your hair, if you have long, but usually with short hair, I know that my hair looks great 5 days after haircut. So I am going to plan a haircut 5 days before my headshot. Things like that. Think ahead. So I always say about 2 weeks ahead. Also 2 weeks ahead, if you do not exfoliate, try it.
But also try it all the time. Like, not every day, but like put that into your routine.
Right. But I'm saying, like, don't try it the day of.
Right.
Because I don't know what's going to happen. But because I will always say, like, moisturize and exfoliate if you can. But try it ahead of time in case you don't like it, or in case it doesn't go well. And then once you get to the day of, or I'll say the night before, because for me, I will do an exfoliating mask and then an overnight hydration mask into the day of. Wow. Yeah. And I have like a list of some masks and stuff. But so then that goes into the day of. Also the day before, drink water, because don't know if you know, hydration comes from the day before, not necessarily the day of. So drink lots of water, simply because, well, honestly, always drink lots of water. Start 2 weeks ahead.
Start now, friends. You're thinking you're getting headshots in 6 years? Start drinking water. This is the time.
Oh my God. I started drinking a gallon of water in 2019, a gallon a day. I kid you not, I noticed a huge difference in my face. Wow. Also my energy. But yeah, and then like, I know that I like to work out in the mornings. It makes me feel less stressed. So I would probably do that. I also feel like it depuffs. Some people have like they roll their skin or gua sha. Do the things that you like to do, that you feel good about the day of. Try to get sleep. I know that's like the hardest thing, because people are like, that's not going to happen. Try to get some rest. Eat. Please do not eat. like you're not going to feel well and you're not going to be as connected because you're going to be tired. And bring snacks if you want. And then also, like, if you are a nervous human, please, like, bring things that will help you. I had a client, so she did a book with a friend shoot, so we had the two of them. And she brought her, like, sewing stuff so that when her friend was shooting, she was sewing, and that calms her. People will make playlists. I mean, I play some really good tunes, but if you have songs that you like love and that help, please. If you have a certain tea that helps you, bring it. I've got a lot of tea options here, but also, you know what I mean? Like, just do what you need. And don't be ashamed of that. If you were going to be a guest star and you had 5 days on set and you were, I mean, I have something that I would bring into my dressing room. I would probably bring that to a headshot session, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it helps. If it helps, it helps. Don't bring like a whole luggage case of stuff.
Someone moves into your home, you're like, this is my home. They bring
all their crystals, like, brought all my crystals with me.
In this weather too, and be like, all right, here I am hauling pounds of crystals.
Just one crystal's fine.
Great.
But yeah, those are like, people always ask, like, what can I do physically? Just that. It's simple. Don't change anything drastically, but drink water and moisturize your face.
Amazing. Is there anything else on your heart that you would like to share about this conversation?
It is a really tricky thing. It is something that feels like a lot of pressure for headshots. And I would just like to pass on that our lives are way more than this. And to me, that brings solace. To me, I have found the things that bring me joy outside of what I look like. And it's hard. And also, it feels like there's a lot of pressure that you need a specific headshot to get you in the room. And it's not necessarily that. It is your relationships. It is like nurturing those with friends who are going to pass on your name, with casting directors that you have given solid self-tapes nowadays for, that will keep bringing you in no matter what your headshot. It really, try to take the pressure off yourself. Try to find the fun in it like you do with auditions. I know that we can sometimes find the fun in that because it's like a minute and a half of us performing, and kind of think of headshots the same way. It's something that we have to do. And it can be liberating. It can be really motivating. It can be fun. So try to take that pressure off.
I love it. Thank you for all of the wisdom and clarity that you shared in this time. If anybody wants to work with you, or your artists that you work with, or if people want to collaborate or what have you, we didn't even talk about your other hats that you wear, but what would you like to plug in this moment within your boundaries of communication?
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, you can find me on Instagram at Shani Hadjian Photography, which is kind of hard to spell. SHANIHADJIAN Photography.
We'll also have the link in the show notes. Great.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. And then my website is very useful, photography.shanihadjian.com. Those are probably the two most frequented places that you can learn about me. Emails, photos at shanihadjian.com, but that's everywhere on those social media places. I made a list of resources of people that I know and like.
Okay.
Acting classes. I love Audition Arts. Acting coach, Shannon Marie Sullivan. Dialect coaches, Carrie Saffron, and then also Amy Jo Jackson, who I know you had on the show.
Yeah, we did.
Other photographer that I am obsessed with and love as human, Ambi J Photography. Director and cinematographer, if you need a reel or if you have a film need made, is Natalia Bugadelis. All these people I follow, you can find them from my site. from my Instagram. And then my makeup artists are Tina Scariano, Bridie Coughlin, Kaylee Weir, Carly Hughes, and Dottie Peterson, who are all tagged in like every single one of my photos. Right. And I just had to put out all of those amazing female and non-binary people to support.
Obsessed. Here in this space is like my favorite thing when people are like, these are resources. And it's just like, y'all, the reason you can go back on a podcast is you can stop and start this thing a gazillion times and like be like, what this was. Okay. Got it. Thank you for that. We love a plug. We love a share. We love making community stronger by working with really great people, because why would we withhold that is really my philosophy on that. So amen. Thank you so much for being here with us in this community and sharing in this way.
Thank you.
And demystifying. I feel like a lot is, there's like these assumptions, and yes, you're one human being, and I imagine other photographers would have their opinions, but like I value yours. So that's why you're here. And I'm grateful that you shared in this way. So thank you.
Thank you for having me and for creating this space.
Thank you.